I've lost count of how many times I've been asked the same question. So, Evelyn, why didn't you finish college? Some people ask it like they're curious, like they really want to understand, but most of the time, it doesn't sound like curiosity. It sounds like judgment, like a reminder that I'm missing something everyone else has, a degree, a piece of paper that they think defines success. And every time I hear it, I feel this little sting in my chest like I'm being told I'm less than them. The truth is, I didn't drop out because I was lazy or because I couldn't handle the pressure. I left because I had to make a choice. Back then, I had this idea I believed in so strongly. It kept me up at night. I felt like if I stayed in school, I'd miss the chance to bring it to life. So I walked away, not because I was weak, but because I was brave enough to bet on myself. But try explaining that to people who measure your worth only by a diploma. I still remember scrolling through my phone late at night, looking at my old classmates' graduation photos, caps tossed in the air, wide smiles, parents beaming with pride. I'd whisper to myself, that could have been me, then quickly shut the screen off before the jealousy swallowed me whole. It wasn't just envy, it was shame. Because I knew that every time my family looked at me, they thought I'd failed. At family dinners, it was the same routine. My cousins would talk about their professors, their internships, their future plans. My aunt would chime in, Evelyn, when are you going back to finish your degree? She'd always say it with that fake sweet tone. But her eyes told the truth. She wasn't asking, she was mocking, and I'd laugh it off, even though it burned inside. My father, Harlan, never said much, but the silence in his stare was louder than any insult. I used to sit in my room after those dinners and ask myself if I made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd replay the choice I made, over and over, wondering if I was foolish to think I could succeed without following the path everyone else followed. But deep down, even when I doubted myself, something inside kept whispering, hold on, your time is coming. So I learned to live with the whispers, the stares, the pity. I told myself I didn't need their approval, but the truth is, part of me craved it. I wanted them to see me for who I really was, not just who they decided I was. And I never imagined that one day, I'd get that chance in a way none of them could ignore. Because life has a strange way of turning the tables, and mine was about to flip. When I think back to the day I walked away from college, it still feels sharp in my memory. Everyone else saw it as quitting, but to me, it was the first real decision I ever made for myself. I had been working on this idea, just a small prototype at first, something that looked like nothing to most people. But I knew it could be big. I couldn't focus on lectures anymore. My mind was always running ahead, sketching, planning, building. I told myself, Evelyn, if you don't give this a chance now, you'll regret it forever. So I left. I didn't pack up my dorm with celebration or tears. I just walked away and never looked back. But my family never understood. They didn't even try. At every gathering, it was like a chorus waiting for me. My Aunt Marla would lean across the table, smirking as she asked, so, Evelyn, when are you going to get serious and finish school? My cousin Beckett would add his little digs too, pretending it was a joke. Guess you'll be the only Mercer without a diploma on the wall. Everyone would laugh, like it was entertainment. And I'd sit there smiling like it didn't matter while inside I was screaming. The worst part wasn't the jokes. It was the disappointment that hung in the air, especially from my father, Harlan. He wasn't cruel, he didn't raise his voice or humiliate me the way the others did, but he had this way of looking at me, quiet, heavy, almost like he was mourning the daughter he thought he had. That stare hurt more than any insult because it made me feel like a failure even when no one said a word. There was one birthday I'll never forget. We were at my grandmother's house, the whole family crowded into the dining room. My cousin Layla stood up with her cake slice still in her hand and announced she had just been accepted into grad school. Everyone clapped, cheered, toasted her with their glasses, and me, I sat in the corner pretending to be happy for her while I shrank smaller and smaller in my chair. I caught my aunt glancing at me with this look like she was comparing us side by side, tallying the wins and losses. And of course, I was the loss. Even outside the family, it followed me. I went to a job interview once for a company I thought might actually see my skills. The manager looked at my resume, raised an eyebrow, and said, "No degree." He didn't even try to hide the judgment. I knew right then I wasn't getting the job. I walked out with my chest tight, hearing the same voice in my head my family had been chanting for years, "Not good enough." If it weren't for Parker, my old friend, the only person who never treated me like I was broken, I don't know if I would have held on. He believed in me when no one else did. He'd say, "Evelyn, you don't need a piece of paper to prove your worth. You're building something real." His words kept me grounded, even when my own family made me feel invisible. Still, every laugh, every stare, every whispered comment piled up inside me. I carried that weight everywhere I went. And no matter how much I tried to ignore it, there was always this voice in my head, daring me to prove them wrong. The night of the reunion, I told myself things would be different. I put on my best dress, fixed my hair, and practiced a smile in the mirror. I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would finally see me as more than the girl who walked away from college.
I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, but I had been working hard, building something real. I wanted to believe they'd noticed that. The barbecue was already loud when I arrived, music playing, kids running around, the smell of grilled food hanging in the air. Everyone seemed so cheerful, so warm, until their eyes landed on me. Then it shifted. That polite smile people give when they don't know what to say, or maybe don't want to. I hugged my grandmother first, because she was the only one who ever greeted me without a trace of judgment. But as soon as I turned, Aunt Marla was there, drink in hand, eyes glinting. "Evelyn," she said, with a dramatic sigh. "Still no degree. You know, it's never too late to go back." She laughed like it was just casual advice, but the smirk on her face gave her away. I forced a smile. "Nice to see you too, Aunt Marla." Then Beckett, my cousin, loud enough for the whole patio to hear. "So, Evelyn, what do you do these days? Watch YouTube tutorials instead of lectures?" Everyone burst out laughing, clinking their glasses together like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all night. My cheeks burned, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I tried to steer the conversation toward my work. "Actually, I've been developing something." But before I could finish, another cousin cut me off, raising his drink. "Well, cheers to our future graduates. Except Evelyn, of course." More laughter. My words disappeared under the noise. I glanced at my father across the table. Harlan didn't laugh, but he didn't stop them either. He just looked down at his plate, that same silence that cut deeper than any insult. I would have taken yelling, even disappointment, over that hollow quiet. At least then I'd know he cared. The night dragged on, and no matter where I stood, the whispers followed. Every time I caught someone's eyes, they looked away too quickly, like I wasn't worth their attention. By the time dessert came out, I couldn't taste a thing. My stomach was too tight, my throat too dry. I slipped out to the porch, staring at the stars to calm myself down. Parker texted me, "You okay?" I wanted to type back, "No, I'm humiliated." But instead I wrote, "Yeah, I'm fine," because admitting the truth felt like admitting they were right. That night, driving home, I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Their laughter kept replaying in my head, over and over. Every word, every smirk, every dismissive glance carved itself into me. I thought I was used to their judgment, but that night was different. That night, it wasn't just jokes, it was betrayal, and I promised myself it would be the last time they ever laughed at me. A few days after that barbecue, when the sting of their laughter was still fresh in my chest, I woke up to an email notification on my phone. At first, I thought it was spam. The subject line read, "Invitation to speak at Ashbrook University Innovation Summit." My stomach dropped. I opened it, my hands trembling, and there it was, an official message from Dr. Simone Alvarez and Dean Callahan, personally inviting me to be a keynote speaker. They wanted me, Evelyn Mercer, the so-called dropout, to share my story and my work with students, professors, and industry leaders.
I just sat there staring at the screen. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. Then it hit me all at once. I wasn't being dismissed, I wasn't being overlooked, I was being recognized. The very place my family used to throw in my face as proof of my failure was now calling me back, not as a student, but as a guest of honor. I whispered out loud, "This is it, this is the moment." At first, I thought about calling Parker, just to scream into the phone about the good news, but something inside told me to hold it close, to savor it quietly. This wasn't about bragging. This wasn't about rubbing it in anyone's face. This was about walking into that auditorium and letting the truth speak louder than anything I could ever say at a family table. The next few weeks were a blur. I worked harder than I ever had, preparing every single detail of my talk. I wanted it to be real, honest, not polished to the point of sounding fake. I stayed up late, writing draft after draft, then tearing them apart until I found the words that felt like mine. I practiced in front of a mirror, in front of Parker, in front of empty chairs in my living room. Each time I felt the fire inside me grow stronger. One night, Parker looked at me and said, "Evelyn, you're not just speaking, you're proving every single one of them wrong." I smiled, but deep down, I knew it wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. I didn't tell my family. I wanted the news to reach them naturally, without me lifting a finger, and sure enough, it did. Someone shared the flyer online, my name printed in bold letters, right under the university's crest. My cousin Layla posted a shocked comment, and within hours my phone buzzed with whispers from relatives I hadn't heard from in months. The same people who mocked me were now gossiping about my name being on an official program. I didn't reply to a single one. I just kept working, kept preparing, kept breathing in the reality that was unfolding. Because soon, very soon, they would see with their own eyes what I had built. And when I stood on that stage, I wouldn't need to defend myself anymore. The truth would do it for me. The news spread faster than I ever imagined. One night, while scrolling, I saw it myself, a picture of the official flyer from Ashbrook University. My name printed in bold under the words keynote speaker. Someone had shared it on Facebook, and by the time I clicked, there were already comments from my own family. Layla had typed, "Wait, is this our Evelyn?" Another cousin wrote, "No way, this has to be a mistake." It wasn't a mistake. And I knew in that exact moment that every single laugh from that barbecue was about to come back to haunt them. Later that week, during another family dinner, the topic surfaced like wildfire. I wasn't even there, but I heard about it afterward. My aunt Marla, the one who always teased me, apparently sat at the table, staring at her phone in disbelief. Becca tried to laugh it off, saying, well, maybe they were desperate for speakers this year. But no one laughed with him, and my father, who had never defended me, who always stayed silent, reportedly just sat there, gripping his fork, not saying a single word. That silence for once wasn't disappointment, it was shock, and then came the day itself. I remember standing backstage at Ashbrook University, my heart pounding so hard I thought the microphone would pick it up before I even walked on. The curtains were heavy, the light seeping through the edges, the murmur of the audience like a rolling wave waiting to crash. Students, professors, reporters, all of them sitting out there, waiting for me. When my name was announced, I stepped out and the world shifted. The applause hit first, this thunderous sound that filled the auditorium. My legs shook, but I kept walking, one step at a time, until I stood at the podium. And then I looked out and saw it, the crest of the university behind me, the bright lights above me, and rows of faces staring back. For a split second, all I could see was my family's smirks, their laughter, their dismissive glances. I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and began. I didn't start with numbers or technical jargon. I started with the truth. I told them about being the girl who left college, about the whispers, the judgment, the humiliation. I told them about chasing an idea that no one believed in but me, and then I showed them what that idea had become: real results, real success. something that couldn't be ignored. The room grew quieter with every word, as if the audience leaned in closer, wanting to feel it all. By the time I reached the end, there was no trace of nerves left in me. I was standing taller, speaking stronger, no longer just Evelyn the dropout, but Evelyn the keynote speaker. When I finished, the applause rose again, louder, longer standing this time. I blinked hard, holding back tears, because in that moment, I knew this was the turning point. This was the moment everything changed. When I stepped off that stage, I felt lighter than I had in years. Students came up to me first, shaking my hand, asking questions, telling me how my story gave them hope. Professors followed, nodding with respect, congratulating me on the work I had done. Reporters scribbled in notebooks, a few snapping pictures while I tried to steady my breathing. It was overwhelming, but in the best way. For once, I wasn't the girl who had quit. I was the woman who had created something worth listening to. I remember walking through the crowd, clutching the folder of my speech, and feeling this strange sense of calm. All the years of shame, all the late nights wondering if I had ruined my life, they didn't matter anymore. Because here I was, standing tall in the very place people swore I didn't belong, and not only did I belong, I was celebrated. Later that evening, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from family members flooded in. Some were short and awkward, "Congrats, Evelyn," or "proud of you." Others tried too hard, like they wanted to rewrite history. "I always knew you'd do something amazing." Those words made me laugh out loud, because I remembered their smirks, their whispers, their cutting jokes at every dinner table. Now they wanted to pretend they'd believed in me all along. Even my father called. For a second I thought about ignoring it, but I answered. His voice was quiet, softer than I'd heard in years. "Evelyn," he said, pausing like he was choosing every word carefully. "You made me proud today," just 7 words, but it was more than I'd ever gotten from him. I didn't gloat, I didn't remind him of all the times he stayed silent. I just said, "Thanks, Dad," and that was enough. The next time I saw them all, there were no jokes, no whispers, no mocking questions about when I'd go back to finish my degree. Instead, there was a silence of a different kind, the kind that comes when people finally realize they were wrong. Some couldn't look me in the eye, others smiled too hard, trying to cover up the guilt, and I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their validation. I carried myself differently after that day, not because of the applause or the spotlight, but because I had proven something to myself. I had survived their judgment, their doubt, their betrayal, and I had come out stronger. When I look back now, I realize success didn't erase the scars, but it made them irrelevant. Their words, their laughter, their disappointment, it all lost its power the moment I stood on that stage, because I built a life on my own terms, and that was the sweetest revenge of all. And as I walked away that night, head high, I thought to myself, let them remember this version of me, the one they never saw coming, the one who didn't need a degree to prove her worth. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it moved you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it. It really helps this community grow, and I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced doubt or had your own moment of sweet revenge? Share it in the comments. I'll be reading them. Stick around for more powerful stories like this. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share the next one with you.